death, and those things cannot be changed. And so Apollo knows from the start that this will never work. This cannot work. It must not work, because if we change that, then the whole Platonic idea of this balance between heaven and earth will be destroyed. And so I am on stage for a lot of the operas, or certainly all the parts that take place on Earth, because I see what happens, and I know that he's going to make this mistake. And that explains why at the end I'm allowed to come and say, it was inevitable what would happen, but now you must come with me into the clouds.
Bueno, yo creo que no sé cómo vamos de tiempo, no sé si también podemos hacer a lo mejor alguna pregunta más.
Tenemos
y luego
como 10 minutos más o menos, para que no se nos haga más de una hora. Si tenéis alguna pregunta vosotros...
Yo quizá hago una referida a los cantantes, porque también hay una cosa muy curiosa. In this orfeo there are 10 singers, as you said, and there is a very experienced singer, and other very young singer that come from Jardin des Bois, that is the laboratory of voices of Les Florissants. How that mixture works in this orfeo and normally in Les Florissants?
Well, I think it works really well. The idea of the Jardin des Bois is that we take young singers who are right at the beginning of their career, and you know, this is a difficult moment. It's, as I was saying, you need a lot of luck to have a great career. It's not just to have a beautiful voice and to have intelligence and you need to meet the right people, you need to have the right opportunities. And so that's what we try to do with the Jardin des Bois. So we present a program with the Jardin des Bois, and that tours around, and that's great. And so they often, have a lot of agents come to these concerts, and that's already a good thing. But then after the Jardin des Bois, we try to include them into certain productions that we do to continue to push them forward. And so when I was casting Orfeo, I knew I wanted to have the team, a lot of the team that did the madrigals, because they know Monteverdi. And that's an amazingly useful thing to have people who sang 8 books, that's, 12 hours of very intense music. So we have a lot of the team who sang the madrigals, and then for the other roles I went to the Jardin des Bois because it's fantastic to have young singers, because they want to learn. I think it's a style which is quite difficult to understand. There are 2 ways to approach these operas of Monteverdi. One way is to say that there's always a compromise. One is to say that what's written on the page is absolutely what Monteverdi wanted, and that means that the text is compromised. So you have to do exactly questo I campi di traccia e questo il loco dove posò il core. Or the other compromise happened in Monteverdi's time, where he thought, okay, how do you write this questo I campi di traccia e questo è il loco dove passò il core? But the closest I can write these rhythms is like this. But the singer will know that he must speak the music. And it's interesting when we read commentaries particularly about how Arianna was sung. There's one person who says wonderfully, the singers spoke their music so beautifully. And I think that spoke really is very important. They didn't sing their music so beautifully. They spoke their music so beautifully. And for me, that means that the compromise is when Monteverdi has to write it down. He says, so he goes, rosa del cielo, vita del mondo, e degna prole di lui che un universo, and then in the music goes, chom, podotum, chom, podotum, podotu, tatotu, tatotu, tatu. And we understand that he's writing as close as he can to speech rhythms, and we need to take those speech rhythms and reappropriate them, understand that we have to speak the language. And that's, when you have good singers, they learn the music, and they learn it right. And then we have to say, okay, that's absolutely right. it's fantastic that you do that completely correctly, those rhythms are all right. But now you have to take it and make it real. So as close as these rhythms are to the speech rhythms, and then we make the music really speak. And I believe absolutely in that. And that's true of the madrigals as well, that when we Sfogava con le stelle, for example, just has one note and then the text underneath, no rhythms at all. And so we have to go Sfogava con le stelle. And there's no option but to do it in the way we speak it. And these things are so important to understand now. What I believe Monteverdi was looking for in all his music. And so that, to work with young singers on these sort of things, to liberate them from this idea that the music is on the page. I always say that, if you buy a television, so you put the television in the corner of the room, you plug it in, but then you don't spend the next 4 days reading the book, saying, press the button to do this, press the button. The book is not it. The book is just the instructions of how to do it. And that's true of the scores of Monteverdi. It's the instruction book. But you have to get out of the instruction book and get into the music. You have to make the music. And it's good to have the instruction book. It's very, very useful to know how to do it. But then there's something else away from the instruction book, which is the music, which is the sound, which is the sound world, which Monteverdi imagined. And that is what we have to work on and keep working on in our rehearsals, so that we produce something which is absolutely believable in dramatic terms, because this is music theatre. And that's enormously important to understand, that when Monteverdi is presenting the piece, he's presenting a theatre piece with music, not a musical piece with text. It's a theatre piece, and so the theatre has to be the first thing. We have to believe in Orfeo, we have to believe that he's in love with Eurydice, we have to believe that he will not accept that she's dead. And so he will go and get her. It's totally crazy, totally impossible. It's an idea of a young man who understands nothing about the world. He doesn't understand that the rules are the rules. He thinks he can do anything. And that's what it is to be young. That's, young people should think that. And so he goes and tries to do the impossible. And we have to understand, we have to believe those characters. And I think the genius of Monteverdi and SCHERZO is that they created something where you can really believe them.
Yeah, for us, it's very important the intuition, no?
Yes, absolutely. I rely completely on the intelligence of our singers and players. Of course, I have a very firm idea, and I direct the performance. But in the end, I say to them, you have to express yourselves. It's not. I can't sing it for you. You have to do it, and they're wonderful, so they do.
Bueno, yo quería preguntarle un par de cosas. Couple of things. If you prefer, don't answer. It's up to you. The second one. The first is very clear. It's about the cycle, the CD cycle of Monteverdi Madrigals you are recording. Está grabando. Creo que acaba de salir el segundo volumen. El tercero y el último, exactamente. Lamentablemente no los tenemos aquí. Hace más de 2 semanas que los hemos pedido a Barcelona, al distribuidor, y no lo sé si es que nos los han mandado por asno, por burro, y están todavía a la altura de Calatayud, o a lo mejor han sido interceptados en la frontera entre Cataluña y España y están todavía con un asunto de aranceles, no lo sé. El caso es que hace 2 semanas que se han pedido esos CDs para que estuvieran aquí, y quienes hubierais querido hubierais podido pedirle al maestro Agnew que lo firmase, pero desgraciadamente no lo tenemos. Bueno, pero I was explaining that we have ordered 2 weeks ago the CDs. Probably they come by donkeys, through donkeys, and they are still in the way, more or less in Calatayud or in Zaragoza, and it will arrive in summertime or something like that. And but nevertheless, I would like to ask you about this cycle. This is the third volume has just come out, and it seems that will be the last one. What can you say to us about this cycle and about your eventual projects of recordings in the Les Florissants label or Harmonia Mundi label?
So when we started the production, the madrigals, it was about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. I didn't want to, sometimes you record just because the music is there. And that seems to me, there are advantages and disadvantages, but catalogue recording, I wanted to do something which guided the listener a bit better than that. Not just say, okay, here's book 1, and now book 2, and now book 3, and now book 4. I said that I read all these biographies of Monteverdi, and it seemed to me very clear that his life divides beautifully into 3 sections. So he's born in Cremona, and it's clear that he's a very, very ambitious young composer, because he starts publishing works when he's 17 years old. And the first book of madrigals is the 4th publication. Amazing. And he's either 18 or 19, so it depends what time of year it's published. But when he publishes his first book, and he's in Cremona, and his teacher is Ingegneri. Ingegneri is a little bit old school polyphony, but Monteverdi is still already slightly knocking on the door of modernity in the first book. So he publishes his first 3 books, but it's clear that you hear Morenzio, and you hear Ingegneri, and you hear other composers in these books. And that's normal. He's a young composer, and he looks towards the great composers around him, and he's very influenced by them. And then at the age of 20, 22, he goes to Mantua, and he takes up a post as a gamba player and as a singer, not as a composer, but within a virtuoso ensemble. The ensemble in Mantua is a little bit in competition with the ensemble in Ferrara, and they know about Florence, and they know about Rome, and they want to be the best. And Vincenzo Gonzaga, following his father's example, was very interested to push music forward. So they have concerts on Friday afternoons, evenings, nearly every week, and they want to have the best music. And it's very lucky for Monteverdi that he has De Wert as Maestro di Cappella when he arrives in Mantua. And De Wert is the missing composer. We should have 20 discs of the music of De Wert, but we have none. We have very few discs of De Wert. De Wert is an amazing, amazing composer. And De Wert is the Maestro di Cappella when Monteverdi arrives in Mantua. And De Wert really is a very modern composer and very, very imaginative. And Monteverdi gains an enormous amount of experience from this contact with De Wert. And so his style changes from the Cremonese style to the Mantuan style. And he has this virtuoso ensemble, so he can write anything he likes. So he writes very complex, harmonically daring music in this time. But he's always commanded to write these pieces. He can meet Tasso. Tasso comes to Mantua, comes to the court of Mantua. He meets Guarini, of course. So these two poets are enormously influential on him and on the court of Mantua. But today he's writing to order. As Gonzaga says, okay, we do this thing on Friday, I want 5 new madrigals then. And it's not just him, there's Pallavicino, De Wert, and many other composers are writing for this ensemble. And then 1612, Vincenzo Gonzaga is dead, and his brother Francesco looks at the books, the accounts, and he says, oh my God, we spend a fortune on music here, and we can't afford this anymore. So Monteverdi and his brother effectively they're sacked. They're thanks very much, goodbye. Monteverdi spends 1 year back in Cremona, nothing to do. But, you know, like we were saying, you need a lot of luck in this profession. He gets a phone call from Venice who say, hey, the post of Maestro di Cappella and San Marco is free. And do you want it? He doesn't come and audition. Do you want the post? So of course he says, Maestro di Cappella in Venice is, with Rome, the best job in the whole of Italy. So of course he goes, but then when he composes secular music in Venice, he's composing for a public. He's not composing for a court. He's not composing for the cognoscenti who are interested in the technique of pushing music forward. He's composing for a public who need to be entertained, and that's very different. So when we see the 7th book of madrigals, he says it's a concerto, a collection, and that is completely different style from the 6th book. The 6th book the 6th book was published when he's already 1612, so 1614. So he's already in Venice, but all the pieces refer to Mantua. There's the Sestina, which is about Caterina Martinelli, 1608, and there's the Lamento d'Arianna, 1608. So that's all about Mantua. The 7th book is all about Venice, and so we get virtuoso music. He leaves behind Tasso and Guarini, and he's interested in Marino. Marino is an amazingly virtuoso poet, but without the heart, the introspection of Guarini and Tasso. He wants to demonstrate how clever he can be with text, and Monteverdi wants to demonstrate how clever he can be with music. And so that book is completely different from anything that he would have written in Mantua. And so we produced 3 discs. We produced Cremona, Mantua, and Venice. And I think in that way there are 2 advantages. You have the sort of autobiography in music, which are the madrigals of Monteverdi, because he wrote madrigals from the age of 17 until just before he died. And that's an amazing thing. But also we understand that Monteverdi is born in the Renaissance, and when he dies, the Baroque is already established. Dramatic music is already absolutely established. He lives 40 years after Orfeo, and in those 40 years, lots of other composers understand that opera is now the way forward. And the madrigal is completely finished. And so the 8th book is then a collection where you get the Combattimento of 1625, you get the Ballo dell'Ingrati of 1608, so you get things which go back and very modern things at the same time. But the 8th book is a sort of collection which sums up his life, and the 7th book is really about Venice. It's about Venice. And you hear within these collections, Cremona, Mantua, and Venice, that extraordinary change which happens in music, from Renaissance polyphony through in the end of the 5th book, the introduction of instruments, and then the solo voice, and the understanding that if you have one solo voice, then you can have 2 solo voices, and once you have 2 solo voices, they can talk to each other. And once you talk to each other in music, well, then life is completely changed. And you can't go back. That's the beginning of modern music. And then the Venice thing is all about the beginning of virtuosity. And it's exactly that virtuosity which will, in the end, change that relationship between music and text we have in Orfeo. Orfeo is not about virtuosity. It's about theatre. But by the time we get to Venice, then we begin to get star singers who can sing very fast, very high, very beautifully, and they are beautiful, and then the music becomes more about the music and less about the text. And that will be the history of music after that. And then we get arias, and then we get big orchestras, and we get star performers. And so you hear within these 3 recordings that transformation in music and the birth of modern music, and that's the music which we are still in. Nothing much has changed since 1607. but Orfeo is the moment of... Yeah, and the music is never the same after that.
Bueno, después de esta fabulosa masterclass monteverdiana,
Yes.
un lujo, a mí me gustaría terminar ya una pequeña pregunta, preguntándole, bueno, Paul, you're Scottish, you're British, you're European.
Oh, very much.
What do you think about the Brexit? What is going to affect your work as a European musician? Something that is going to start right now, and probably it is affecting already some musicians. What's your opinion from that triple point of view of a Scottish, British, and European musician?
Well, I think we don't learn very much from history, unfortunately. Very unfortunately, so we're repeating things which happened a long time ago, again, and Brexit is a stupidity beyond words. I absolutely am a European. I carry a British passport, but I think it says European Community on it. And all our passports are the same. They're pink and they're the same size, and that says that we're all European. And I had many friends in the United States. I was in the United States on the day of the election. We had to rehearse that morning. It was an extremely difficult time. When you see what's going on in the Netherlands, what happens in Britain, and so on, and what's happening in Poland, and it's tragically stupid, unfortunately. But we are very lucky to work in music, and music has this great advantage of being this completely international, universal language. And I think it's absolutely a language which combines us. Here we have, I am a Scot, I'm from Scotland. I direct a French ensemble who sings an Italian work in Spain. I think that's great. I think there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think there's a lot right with that. And I think in times like this, when our politicians and indeed the populace, fellow citizens are pushing us in such crazy, stupid directions, things like music and great culture, great art, great literature become much, much, much more important. They are the things that combine us. The thing about forgetting history so quickly is that we are in the history business. When we perform Baroque music, we're in the history business. We are constantly reminded about everything that happened before. So when we talk about the end of the 16th century, we talk about the religious wars of France, Spain, Italy. When we talk about there's music and literature reminds us constantly of the events which have caused us so much pain in the past, and I regret enormously that Europe finds itself in this pathetic and ridiculous situation. And all we can do is continue to try and within the cultural world to try and remind people of why we shouldn't do these things and what is right in the world. And I believe absolutely and seriously that culture, high culture, has a mission. It's an important element in our lives, and when we have governments that keep cutting budgets for culture, they are cutting their heads off, and it's absolutely crazy.
Well, I think it has been a fantastic hours worthwhile to come to la Quinta de Mahler. Creo que ha sido una maravillosa hora que hemos pasado con uno de los grandes maestros de la música barroca de nuestro tiempo. I want to thank you very, very much, deeply, Paul Agnew. I hope to see you very often among us. It's always a pleasure, and what remind me to ask is a big applause for Mr. Paul Agnew.
gracias, Eduardo. Ha sido un cover de lujo.